Well, you remember Saddam Hussein and his weapons of mass destruction that never actually existed. Though that was the reason, though, that George W. Bush actually went to Congress back in 2002, some 13 years ago, to ask for permission to declare war on Iraq and go forward with that initiative. Now, President Obama, who has seen the withdrawal of forces from many actions around the world, including Iraq and Afghanistan, is going to do the same thing, go to Congress in the United States and ask for war to be put forward there. So joining us to discuss this, Gail Trotter is a senior fellow of the Independent Women's Forum. She's in Washington. Gail, good to see you. That is the expectation, isn't it, that the president is going to go to Congress?
Yes, the president has sent a letter to Congress with a resolution to authorize military force against the Islamic State. And as you know, under our American constitutional system, Congress has the power to declare war. So it is right that President Obama should regard the Constitution highly and go ask Congress for this authority. It also makes practical sense because if he has bipartisan support for any mission that he would engage in overseas, he has more likelihood that the American people will be behind it, and it will send a clear message to the Islamic State that we are coming after them and we're not going to rest until they are destroyed and their capabilities are taken out.
But there has been already, obviously, extensive military action within Iraq and Syria, and the president has used his authority. Is that likely to be revoked?
No, as you mentioned, there was an authorization for use of military force that President Bush asked Congress for in 2001. That has been a subject of much controversy over the years. And there is an idea that maybe this new authorization of military force could roll up the 2001 authorization and supersede it. But in the letter that Congress received from the president, he said he was not touching the 2001 authorization for use of military force. But Congress has a very strong responsibility in this circumstance to understand what the mission that President Obama is proposing and to understand the rules of engagement. In the past, family members of U.S. service members have been of the opinion that the limited rules of engagement propagated by this administration have endangered the lives of U.S. service members. So it's incumbent on Congress to make sure they understand what the rules of engagement of this administration in this conflict are going to be.
Yeah, and that's in part because the Republicans aren't sure that there's any strategy, I guess, behind the Islamic State initiatives, if you will. And the Democrats want to limit some of the powers that are there already. Isn't that the case?
Yes, and you know that President Obama released his new national security policy last week, and it was surprisingly similar to the policy that he's had previously, even though circumstances have greatly changed since he took office. And we understand that as we're going forward with this type of engagement, President Obama has signaled many times that he is opposed to the leadership of the president of Syria, Bashar al-Assad, and has given the indication that he wants to see Assad replaced. But in this authorization for use of military force, it is inevitable that the United States in military action is going to bump up against the sovereignty of Syria because Islamic State has its strongholds in Syria. And if we are truly going to take it to the Islamic State, then there's necessarily going to have to be involvement of territory that's controlled by Syria, at least legally. And this creates a problem because of the past history of the diplomacy of this administration with Syria and President Obama's confrontations with the leader of Syria. And this is something that Congress needs to look at closely before they okay this authorization of new military intervention.
Okay, so obviously Syria is a touchy point. What about ground forces? Is that going to be discussed?
Yes, it's very interesting. This is something that has been a hot topic, and many people feel that the presence of ground troops should not be taken off the table. In any type of conflict that you have with a foreign aggressor, you should leave the possibility that you can send in ground troops. In the letter that President Obama sent to Congress, he said that there would be limited situations where ground troops would be involved in things like rescue missions, intelligence operations, but he does not foresee that it would be a large ground troop invasion or anything of that sort, that it would be very limited and very surgical in the precision. But I think Congress, it is very important for Congress to understand the limits of this, and I think it is a tactical mistake to take ground troops off the table, because that does signal to Islamic State that we are committed to eradicating them only so far. And as you know, we've had 4 Americans who have been killed by the Islamic State, 3 of them in gruesome videos that have been broadcast to the world to encourage young people to come and fight with Islamic State against the United States. And I think we need to give the Islamic State a strong signal that America will not stop until they have lost their power to terrorize the free world.
Gail, thank you so much.